Admiral Kethzara stood on the bridge of Beckon's Hope and watched her people die. The massive viewing screen showed another Xanthari evacuation ship exploding in silent flame. The Void Swarm had found them again. They always found them. How? Many ships lost this time? She asked her communications officer. 12 evacuation vessels, Admiral. 4,000 civilians. The young officer's voice broke. The swarm broke through our defensive line in less than 10 minutes. Kethzara closed her 4 eyes and tried to remember when the war had hope. 300 years ago, the Galactic Federation controlled 17 star systems. 12 species worked together with advanced technology and careful planning. They had been winning. Now the Federation was down to 3 battered fleets and a handful of refugee ships. The crystalline hegemony's living vessels had gone silent. 2 months ago. Nobody knew if they were destroyed or just hiding. The machine minds of the Nexus Collective had calculated their own doom and shut themselves down rather than face extinction. Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from Federation Command, the communications officer said. Put it through. The hologram of Admiral Vax appeared above the command table. The old reptilian leader looked tired. His scales had lost their bright green color and turned gray with stress. Kethzara, we're pulling back to the core systems. The outer rim is lost. We cannot hold the line anymore. What about the civilian populations on the border worlds? Kethzara asked. Save who you can. The swarm adapts too fast. Every tactic we try, they counter within days. Every weapon we develop, they evolve resistance in weeks. We're fighting. An enemy that learns faster than we can think. The transmission ended. Kethzara stared at the tactical display, showing red markers where swarm forces had been detected. They covered most of the galaxy now. The small blue dots representing Federation forces looked like islands in a red ocean. Set course for the core systems, she ordered. Signal all ships to begin final evacuation procedures. Meanwhile, 3,000 light-years away in a quiet sector of space, Captain Jake Murphy was having a normal Tuesday. The human exploration vessel Pioneer drifted near a yellow star while his crew conducted routine surveys of the system's outer planets. Anything interesting on Planet 7, Lisa? Jake asked his engineer. Lisa Carter looked up from her scanning equipment. Lots of frozen methane and some metal deposits. Nothing special. This whole system is pretty boring. Jake nodded. Most systems were boring. That was fine with him. Boring meant safe, and safe meant his crew went home alive. The Pioneer was one of only 50 deep space vessels in the human fleet. Earth's government preferred to keep their ships close to home. Captain, I'm picking up something weird, said Ben Rodriguez from the communication station. It's a transmission, but it's not from any human source. Pirates? Asked Dr. Amy Foster, the ship's medic. No, this is different. The signal is using Federation standard protocols, but the message is strange. It's addressed to anyone who can. Receive it, Jake frowned. The Galactic Federation had made contact with Earth 20 years ago, but they kept humans at arm's length. Federation representatives had been polite but clear. Humanity was too primitive and violent to join Galactic civilization. Humans were told to stay in their own small corner of space. Let me hear it, Jake said. The bridge speakers crackled to life. A synthetic voice began speaking in perfect English. This is an automated distress beacon from the Galactic Federation. Our forces are defeated. Our worlds burn. The Void Swarm has overrun most of our territory. If you are receiving this message, know the 12 species fought bravely for 3 centuries, but we have failed. The coordinates of our last safe haven are attached to this transmission. If you have the strength to fight, please help us. If you do not, then avenge us when we are gone. The message repeated twice, then ended. The bridge fell silent. Navigator Tony Walsh was the first to speak. "Captain, those coordinates are only 6 jumps away. We could be there in 2 days. Ben, any other ships receiving this signal?" Jake asked. "I'm scanning all frequencies. Nothing from human vessels. But there are automated repeater stations boosting the signal across several sectors. Whoever sent this wants everyone to hear it." Lisa looked worried. "Captain, if this void swarm defeated the entire Federation, what could one human ship do?" Jake studied the star chart on his screen. The Federation had technology centuries ahead of Earth. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, their defenses nearly impenetrable. If they couldn't win, what chance did humans have? But something bothered him about the whole situation. The Federation had always acted superior to humans. They controlled vast territories and had resources beyond imagination. How could they lose so completely? "Amy, what do you know about human military history?" Jake asked. Dr. Foster looked confused. "I'm a medic, not a historian." "Why?" "Just thinking. How many times has a smaller, less advanced force defeated a larger, more advanced enemy?" "That happens all the time," Tony said. "The Americans beat the British. The Vietnamese beat the Americans. The Afghans beat everybody who tried to conquer them." "Exactly. Superior technology doesn't always win wars. Sometimes the underdog has advantages the advanced enemy doesn't expect." Ben was running analysis on the transmission. "Captain, I'm detecting heavy encryption in parts of this message. There's tactical data hidden in the signal. Fleet positions, enemy movement patterns, technology specifications. Whoever sent this included a complete intelligence package." Jake made his decision. "Plot a course for those coordinates." "We're going to take a look." "Sir, shouldn't we contact Earth Command first?" Lisa asked. "And tell them what?" "That we're investigating a distress call from aliens who think we're too primitive to help them. They'd order us to come home immediately." The Pioneer's jump drive charged with a low hum. Jake watched his crew prepare for departure. These were good people. Lisa could fix any machine ever built. Ben could crack any code or communication system. Amy could patch up injuries that would kill most people. Tony could navigate through asteroid fields with his eyes closed, but there were still just 5 humans on one small ship. The Federation had billions of people and thousands of vessels. If they couldn't win, how could the Pioneer make a difference? Jake thought about the message again. The Federation had fought for 3 centuries using their advanced technology and careful strategies. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe they were thinking too much like civilized beings. Humans had a different approach to warfare. They were messy, unpredictable, and willing to try ideas that seemed crazy. Earth's military history was full of victories won through tactics that shouldn't have worked. "Jump drive ready, Captain," Tony announced. "Take us out," Jake ordered. The Pioneer disappeared into hyperspace, heading toward a war zone where an entire galactic civilization was making its last stand. Jake had no idea what they would find when they arrived, but he knew one thing for certain. The Federation might be losing this war because they were fighting it like civilized people. But humans had never been accused of being too civilized. Maybe that would make all the difference. The ship jumped through space toward coordinates that would change the course of galactic history. Behind them, Earth continued its peaceful existence, unaware that one of its ships was about to enter the greatest war the galaxy had ever seen. In 6 more hours, Captain Jake Murphy and his crew would discover that sometimes the most primitive solution is exactly what an advanced problem needs. The Pioneer dropped out of hyperspace and immediately went to full alert. Jake Murphy stared at the main screen in shock. The coordinates had led them to what looked like a graveyard of starships. Thousands of broken vessels drifted in space. Some were huge Federation dreadnoughts, their hulls cracked open like broken eggs. Others were smaller ships, twisted into shapes that hurt to look at. The debris field stretched from millions of kilometers in every direction. "My God," whispered Lisa Carter. "What happened here?" "Scanning for survivors," then Rodriguez reported. "I'm detecting weak power signatures from several ships. Some of them are still alive." Jake felt sick looking at the destruction. The Federation had described this as their last safe haven, but it looked more like their final defeat. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission," Ben said. "It's coming from that large station at the center of the debris field." On the screen, a tall alien figure appeared. She had blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern on her face. Her uniform was torn and stained with something that might have been blood. "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Kethzara of the Galactic Federation. You are entering a combat zone. Please state your identity and intentions." Jake activated the communication system. "Admiral, this is Captain Jake Murphy of the human vessel Pioneer. We received your distress signal and came to help." The aliens. 4 eyes blinked in sequence. "Human? That's impossible. Your species was classified as pre-spaceflight. You don't have the technology for deep space travel." "Well, we're here now," Jake said. "What can we do to help?" Admiral Kethzara stared at him for a long moment. "Captain Murphy, you should leave immediately. The Void Swarm will return soon. They always return to finish what they started." "How? Many survivors do you have?" "Perhaps 50,000 across all the remaining ships. We lost over 2 million in the last attack 3 days ago. The swarm broke through our defensive formations in minutes." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew was listening to every word. These weren't just numbers to them. 50,000 people were about to die unless someone helped them. "Admiral, we'd like to come aboard your station and discuss the situation." "Captain, with respect, 5 humans cannot change the outcome of this war. The Federation has fought the swarm for 3 centuries. We have weapons and ships far beyond your technology. If we cannot win, what hope do you have?" "Maybe that's the problem," Jake said quietly. "What do you mean?" "Permission to come aboard, Admiral. I think we need to talk." 2 hours later, Jake sat in the conference room aboard Beacon's Hope with Admiral Kethzara and her senior staff. The alien officers looked exhausted and defeated. Their uniforms were dirty, their equipment was damaged, and their eyes held no hope. "Show me everything," Jake said. "I want to understand how you've been fighting this war." Admiral Kethzara activated a holographic display. It showed the galaxy with red areas marking swarm territory and tiny blue dots showing Federation positions. 300 years ago, we detected the first swarm ships in the Outer Rim, she began. They appeared to be a hive mind species with biological ships. We formed defensive lines and pushed them back using superior firepower. The display showed Federation. Fleets arranged in neat formations, firing coordinated volleys at incoming swarm vessels. For the first 50 years, this strategy worked. Our technology was better, our tactics were proven, and our coordination was perfect. We thought we would win quickly. Jake watched the tactical displays. Everything looked organized and professional. The Federation fought like they were playing chess, moving pieces according to careful plans. But the swarm adapted, Admiral Kethzara continued. They began using different ship types. They changed their attack patterns. They started targeting our supply lines instead of our battle fleets. The display showed how swarm tactics evolved over decades. They learned to counter every Federation strategy within months of encountering it. We developed new weapons. They evolved resistance. We changed our formations. They found new ways to break them. We built stronger defenses. They found ways around them. No matter what we tried, they were always one step ahead. Jake studied the battle recordings. The Federation fought with discipline and honor. They followed rules of engagement. They tried to minimize civilian casualties. They fought like civilized beings who believed in order and logic. The swarm fought like hungry animals. Admiral, can I ask you something? In all these 300 years of war, did you ever try anything crazy? The alien officers looked confused. Crazy? Unpredictable. Something that didn't make sense. Something that violated your military doctrine. Captain Murphy, we are a civilized alliance. We don't use barbaric tactics. We fight with honor and strategy. Jake nodded. That was exactly the problem. Ben, show them the files from Earth's military history. He said. Ben Rodriguez activated his portable computer and connected it to the Federation's display system. Images of human warfare appeared on the screen. This is the Battle of Canny. Jake explained. A small army defeated a force twice its size by pretending to retreat, then surrounding the enemy. This is the Trojan horse. Soldiers hid inside a fake gift and captured a city from within. This is the Tet offensive. An army that was supposed to be defeated launched surprise attacks everywhere at once. The alien officers stared at the human battle records with horror. These tactics are dishonorable, one of them said. Civilized. Beings don't fight this way. No, they don't, Jake agreed. But these tactics win wars. Admiral Kethzara looked troubled. Captain Murphy, what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting that maybe the reason you're losing is because you're fighting. Too fair. The swarm doesn't follow your rules. They don't care about honor or civilized warfare. They just want to win. Jake activated another file. This is from our recent analysis of your tactical data. The swarm has certain patterns. They always attack in formation. They always target the largest ships first. They always retreat when they take heavy casualties. They're predictable because they're a hive mind. But every time we try to exploit their patterns, they adapt. Admiral Kethzara protested. Because you're still thinking like a civilized military force. You make plans. You coordinate attacks. You follow protocols. The swarm learns from that. Because it's organized thinking. Jake stood up and began pacing around the conference room. What if instead of making careful plans, you acted randomly? What if instead of targeting their military ships, you went after something they don't expect? What if instead of fighting to win, you fight to confuse them? The Federation officers looked at each other with uncertainty. Give me one ship, Jake said. Let me show you what human tactics look like. If it works, maybe we can save your people. If it doesn't, you're no worse off than you are now. Admiral Kethzara was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. Captain Murphy, I have a damaged cruiser with a volunteer crew of 30 aliens who have nothing left to lose. If you can convince them to follow human battle tactics, I will give you command. What's the ship's name? The Defiant. It lost its main weapons in the last battle, but the engines still work. Jake smiled. Perfect. A ship with no weapons is exactly what I need to fight an enemy that's too smart for its own good. Within 6 hours, Jake Murphy found himself in command of an alien warship with a crew that thought he was insane. His plan made no sense according to every rule of space warfare. But as the swarm fleet approached for their final attack on the Federation survivors, Jake was about to teach the galaxy that sometimes the best way to win a war is to fight like you've already lost your mind. The first lesson in human military tactics was about to begin. Jake Murphy stood on the bridge of the Defiant and looked at his new crew. 30 alien beings from 6 different species stared back at him with confusion and fear. They had volunteered for what everyone believed was a suicide mission. All right, listen up, Jake said. I know you think I'm crazy. You're probably right. But crazy might be exactly what we need to beat the swarm. The ship's acting first officer was a tall, thin creature named Vextar from the reptilian species. His green scales were scarred from previous battles, and one of his arms hung in a medical sling. Captain Murphy, the swarm fleet will arrive in 4 hours. They have 27 ships, including 3 massive bioships. We have 1 damaged cruiser with no main weapons. How do you propose we fight them? Jake smiled. We don't fight them. We confuse them. He activated the ship's tactical display and pointed to the debris field around Beacon's Hope. The swarm always attacks the same way. They form up in battle formation, target the largest ships first, and use overwhelming firepower to break defensive lines. They expect us to either run away or form our own battle line to meet them. That is standard military doctrine, said the ship's engineer, a crystalline being whose body sparkled with internal light. What else would we do? Something stupid, Jake replied. Ben, show them the plan. Ben Rodriguez, who had transferred over from the Pioneer along with the rest of Jake's crew, activated his computer. The display showed the Defiant's proposed flight path, and every alien on the bridge made sounds of shock and disbelief. You want to fly directly into the center of their formation? Vexstar asked. That's suicide. That's the idea, Jake said. They won't expect it because no sane commander would do it. While they're trying to figure out what we're doing, we'll be doing something even crazier. Lisa Carter stepped forward. I've been working with your engineers to modify the ship's systems. We've removed all the safety protocols from the engine. Core, we can overload it on command. The crystalline engineer's light flickered with alarm. You turned our ship into a bomb? Not exactly, Lisa said. More like a really big firework. The explosion won't destroy their bioships, but it will blind their sensors and disrupt their communications for several minutes. Jake nodded. While they're confused, the real attack begins. Admiral Kethzara has agreed to try something that goes against every rule in the Federation military handbook. Dr. Amy Foster was monitoring the ship's medical bay where several wounded Federation soldiers were recovering. Jake, are you sure about this? These people have been fighting this war for 3 centuries. They know what they're doing. That's exactly the problem, Amy. They know what they're doing, so the swarm knows what they're going to do. We need to do things that make no sense. Tony Walsh looked up from the navigation station. Captain, I'm plotting the approach course now. This is going to be the wildest ride any of us have ever taken. 3 hours later, the swarm fleet appeared at the edge of the system. Jake watched them on the long-range sensors as they formed their standard attack formation. 3 massive bioships at the center, surrounded by smaller vessels in a perfect geometric pattern. They're so predictable, he muttered. Ben, are you recording everything? Yes, sir. Getting detailed scans of their formation and movement patterns. Admiral. Kethzara's voice came over the communication system. Captain Murphy, the swarm fleet is approaching. They will be in weapons range in 30 minutes. Are you ready to begin this insane plan? Ready as we'll ever be, Admiral. Remember, no matter what happens, don't try to rescue us. Stick to the plan. Jake turned to his mixed crew of humans and aliens. Everyone strap in. This is going to get rough. The Defiant broke away from the Federation formation and accelerated directly toward the swarm fleet. Jake could hear his alien crew members praying in languages he didn't understand. Captain, the swarm ships are changing formation, Ben reported. They're moving to intercept us. Perfect. They're doing exactly what we expected. On the tactical display, Jake watched the swarm fleet reorganize itself to deal with the single ship racing toward them. Their formation became tighter, more focused. All of their attention was on the crazy humans flying into certain death. Engine core at 110%, Lisa announced. We're well into the danger zone. Keep pushing it. We need to get close enough for this to work. The Defiant shook as swarm weapons began hitting their shields. Alarms blared throughout the ship. Sparks flew from control panels as systems overloaded. "Shields down to 40%, Tony called out. 20%, 10%. Jake waited until the last possible moment. The main screen showed the massive swarm bioships directly ahead, their organic hulls pulsing with alien energy. "Now, Lisa. Blow it." Lisa Carter hit the engine overload switch. The Defiant's power core exploded in a brilliant flash of light and electromagnetic energy. The ship itself survived, but barely. Every system shut down except for emergency life support, but the explosion had exactly the effect Jake wanted. The electromagnetic pulse spread through the swarm formation, blinding their sensors and jamming their communications. For the first time in 3 centuries, a swarm fleet was flying blind. That's when Admiral Kethzara launched the real attack. Instead of the traditional coordinated assault the swarm expected, Federation ships began acting randomly. Some attacked from above, others from below. Some targeted the big bioships, others went after smaller vessels. Some ships flew in circles, shooting at everything, while others broadcast loud music and random radio signals. The swarm fleet used to fighting organized enemies didn't know how to respond to complete chaos. "It's working," Ben shouted from his emergency backup console. "The swarm ships are breaking formation. They're attacking each other because they can't tell friend from foe." Jake watched the battle through the Defiant's damaged sensors. Federation ships were using tactics that would get them court-martialed in peacetime. They rammed damaged vessels into healthy ones. They used broken ships as shields. They fired at random targets instead of following targeting priorities. Captain Murphy, Admiral Kethzara's voice, came through the static-filled communication. "System, your plan is working. The swarm fleet is in complete disarray. We're winning." But Jake knew this was just the beginning. "Admiral, remember what I told you. Don't try to capture any territory. Don't try to hold defensive positions. Hit them hard, and then run away. Make them chase you. That goes against everything we've been taught about warfare." "Good. If it goes against everything you've been taught, then it goes against everything the swarm has learned to counter." The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, the Federation had achieved something impossible. They had won a decisive victory against the swarm, not through superior technology or better coordination, but through pure, chaotic unpredictability. The Defiant limped back to Beacon's Hope with its crew, amazed at what they had accomplished. Jake Murphy found himself surrounded by alien officers who wanted to understand how human military thinking worked. "Captain Murphy," Admiral Kethzara said when they met in the station's conference room, "your tactics saved 50,000 lives today, but I need to know, can this approach work on a larger scale?" Jake looked at the tactical reports from the battle. The swarm had lost 15 ships and retreated in complete confusion. But more importantly, they had been forced to adapt to completely random human behavior. "Admiral, this was just the first lesson. The swarm will learn from this defeat and change their tactics. But that's okay, because humans have been changing tactics in the middle of battles for thousands of years." He activated his computer and showed her files from Earth's military academies. "We have 3,000 years of warfare experience. We've fought in every possible condition against every type of enemy. We've won battles we should have lost and lost battles we should have won. But we've learned something the Federation never had to learn." "What's that?" "Sometimes you have to be willing to lose everything in order to win anything. The swarm fights to preserve itself. You fight to preserve civilization. But humans fight to win, even if it means doing things that seem completely insane." Admiral Kethzara studied the human military files with growing understanding. Captain Murphy, how many more humans can Earth send to help us? Jake smiled. Admiral, you just sent a distress signal to a species that has never lost a war when we decided we really wanted to win it. How many humans do you need? 3 months after the victory at Beacon's Hope, the war had changed completely. Jake Murphy stood in the command center of the human battleship Liberty and watched tactical displays that would have been impossible before humans joined the fight. Liberty was Earth's newest ship, built specifically for the Galactic War. It carried 2,000 human Marines and a crew of 1,500. More importantly, it carried Colonel Sarah Mitchell, Earth's top military strategist, and her team of human war planners. Captain Murphy, we have a problem, Colonel Mitchell said as she entered the command center. The swarm is adapting to our tactics faster than we hoped. Jake studied the latest battle reports. Human forces had won 12 major victories in the past month, but each victory was harder than the last. The swarm was learning to expect the unexpected. Show me the Nexus Prime battle footage, he said. The main screen displayed recordings from the recent fight. Human Admiral Frank Cooper had led a defense of the Federation's last major shipyard using classic human tactics. Random attacks, chaos, formations, and psychological warfare had worked perfectly, until the swarm started using the same tactics against them. Look at this. Colonel Mitchell pointed to a section of the recording. The swarm ships are flying in random patterns now. They're targeting civilian ships to create confusion. They're even broadcasting noise to jam our communications. Jake frowned. They're copying us. Worse than that. They're improving on our ideas. The swarm learns from every battle. We taught them to fight dirty, and now they're fighting dirtier than we are. Dr. Helen Brooks, the human xenobiologist, joined them at the tactical display. She had been studying captured swarm specimens for weeks. I've found something important, she said. The swarm isn't just one species. It's a collection of different organisms working together, but they're not naturally evolved. She activated a holographic display showing microscopic images of swarm tissue. Look at these cellular structures. They've been artificially enhanced. Someone or something has been modifying these creatures to make them better fighters. Jake, examine the images. You mean the swarm has a creator? More than that. I think the swarm is still being controlled by whatever made them. The rapid adaptation we've been seeing isn't natural evolution. It's intelligent design happening in real time. Colonel Mitchell looked troubled. If something is controlling the swarm and making them stronger, we need to find it and stop it. I agree, Jake said. But first we need to deal with the immediate problem. The swarm is using our own tactics against us. We need new ideas. The answer came from an unexpected source. Commander Alex Johnson, a human pilot who had been leading mixed squadrons of human and alien fighters, entered the command center with exciting news. Captain, I think I've found a weakness in the new swarm tactics, he said. During the last battle, I noticed something strange. When we played music during combat, the swarm ships started flying erratically. Music? Jake asked. Yes, sir. My wingman was playing rock music over the CUM system, and the swarm fighters near us started making mistakes. They crashed into each other, missed easy shots, and generally acted confused. Dr. Brooks became very interested. What kind of music? Loud, chaotic stuff. Rock, metal, some classical pieces with lots of drums. The weirder and more random, the better the effect. That makes sense, Dr. Brooks said. If the swarm is being controlled by some kind of intelligence, music might interfere with the control signals. Random, chaotic sounds could disrupt their coordination. Jake smiled. So we fight them with noise pollution. It's worth trying, Colonel Mitchell agreed, but we need to be careful. If the swarm controller is as smart as we think, it will adapt to this tactic too. 2 days later, Jake found himself leading the largest human fleet ever assembled. 50 ships from Earth had joined the Federation forces, along with volunteers from 6 different alien species. The combined fleet was preparing to attack a major swarm stronghold, but this wasn't going to be a normal battle. Every ship in the fleet had been equipped with powerful speakers and sound systems. The human Marines had spent hours creating the most chaotic, random playlist in galactic history. "All ships, this is Admiral Murphy," Jake announced over the fleet communication system. "Remember, we're not just fighting the swarm today. We're fighting whatever is controlling them. Hit them with everything we've got, but most importantly, hit them with every sound we can make." The fleet approached the swarm stronghold, a massive construct built around a dying star. The structure was clearly artificial, but it didn't look like anything in Federation databases. "Captain, I'm detecting thousands of swarm ships defending that construct," reported Ben Rodriguez from the sensor station. "They're arranged in perfect formations. Too perfect." "They're waiting for us," Colonel Mitchell observed. "Whatever is controlling them knows we're coming." Jake nodded. "Good. Let's give them something to listen to. All ships, begin audio assault." The fleet opened fire with their sound systems at maximum volume. Rock music, classical symphonies, human voices singing, animals making noise, and random electronic sounds flooded the space around the construct. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The perfectly organized swarm fleet began to break apart. Ships started flying into each other. Formation patterns dissolved into chaos. Some swarm vessels simply stopped moving entirely. "It's working," shouted Tony Walsh over the noise. "The swarm fleet is completely disorganized." But Jake wasn't celebrating yet. Something felt wrong. The construct itself was beginning to glow with an angry red light. "All ships, be ready for anything," he announced. "I don't think we're fighting just the swarm anymore." The construct suddenly opened like a flower, revealing something that made Jake's blood run cold. Inside was a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with malevolent energy. As Jake watched, tendrils of dark force reached out from the crystal toward the confused swarm ships. "My God," whispered Dr. Brooks. "It's trying to regain control of them." The crystal began to emit its own sounds. Not music, but something that hurt to listen to. The human crew members on every ship began to feel sick and afraid. Some of the alien crew members collapsed entirely. "Captain, that thing is broadcasting some kind of fear signal," Dr. Brooks said through gritted teeth. "It's affecting our minds directly." Jake felt the fear too. It was overwhelming, like every nightmare he'd ever had was coming true at once. But he also felt something else. Anger. "All ships, this is Admiral Murphy," he said, fighting to keep his voice steady. "That thing in there is what's been controlling the swarm. It's what's been killing billions of innocent people for 3 centuries. And now it's trying to scare us into running away." He paused, then continued with growing determination. "Well, I don't know about you, but I didn't come all this way just to get scared by some oversized crystal. All ships, increase audio output to maximum. Let's show this thing what human music sounds like when we're really angry." The fleet responded with everything they had. War songs, battle hymns, rock anthems, and the sounds of human voices raised in defiance. The noise was so loud it could probably be heard on planets light years away. The crystal entity reacted with visible pain. Its red glow began to flicker. The fear signals weakened. "It's working," Colonel Mitchell said. "Whatever that thing is, it doesn't like noise as much as it doesn't like chaos." But Jake knew they were running out of time. The swarm ships were beginning to recover, and the crystal was adapting to their audio assault. "All ships, prepare for direct assault on the construct," he ordered. "We're going inside that thing to destroy it permanently." "Captain, that's suicide," Vextar protested. "We don't know what's inside there." Jake looked at his crew, then at the tactical display showing the thousands of swarm ships that would soon be back under the crystal's control. "Maybe it is suicide," he said. "But if we don't stop that thing now, it's going to kill everyone in the galaxy eventually. And I'd rather die fighting than live knowing I could have made a difference." The Liberty and a dozen other ships broke away from the main fleet and accelerated toward the construct. Jake Murphy was about to discover what had been controlling the swarm all along, and whether human determination could defeat an enemy that fed on fear itself. The Liberty crashed through the outer shell of the alien construct with its shields blazing. Jake Murphy held on tight as the ship shook from impacts with strange organic barriers. Around him, his crew worked frantically to keep the ship flying through an environment that seemed designed to destroy anything that entered it. "Hull integrity at 60%, Lisa Carter reported. "Whatever this place is made of, it's fighting back." Jake looked at the main screen and saw horrors beyond imagination. The inside of the construct was like being inside a living nightmare. Walls pulsed with veins of dark energy. Creatures that looked like twisted combinations of metal and flesh hung from the ceiling. And everywhere there was a sound like screaming that seemed to come from the walls themselves. "Captain, I'm detecting the source of the control signals," Ben Rodriguez said. "It's about 2 kilometers deeper into this thing, but the path is blocked by some kind of defensive systems." Colonel Sarah Mitchell joined Jake at the command station. Her face was pale but determined. "Our Marine teams are ready to go in on foot if necessary. But Captain, I have to ask, are you sure about this? Once we're inside that thing, we might not be able to get back out." Jake thought about Admiral Kethzara and the 50,000 Federation survivors still fighting for their lives outside. He thought about Earth and the billions of humans who didn't even know this war was happening. He thought about all the species that had already been destroyed by the swarm over the past 3 centuries. "Colonel, if we don't stop this thing now, everyone dies anyway. At least this way we have a chance." The Liberty pushed deeper into the construct, fighting through defenses that seemed to learn and adapt with every second. Strange energy beams lashed out at the ship. Organic barriers tried to seal the path behind them. And always there was that terrible screaming sound that made everyone on board feel like they were going insane. "Captain, the fear signals are getting stronger," Dr. Amy Foster reported from the medical bay. "Half the crew is having panic attacks. Some of the alien crew members have lost consciousness entirely." Jake felt the fear, too. It was like every bad thing that had ever happened to him was happening again all at once. His parents dying in a transport accident. His first command failure that cost 3 good people their lives. Every mistake he had ever made seemed to echo in his mind. But Jake Murphy had learned something important during his years as a starship captain. Fear was just another enemy to fight. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced over the ship's communication system. "I know you're all scared right now. I'm scared too. But being scared doesn't mean we quit. It means we're still alive and still fighting." He paused to look around the bridge at his crew. Lisa was working on damaged systems with tears streaming down her face, but her hands still steady. Ben was tracking the control signals, even though he was shaking with terror. Tony was flying the ship through impossible obstacles while muttering prayers in 3 languages. "The thing in here feeds on fear," Jake continued. "It wants us to be afraid because that makes it stronger. So let's give it something else to chew on instead." He activated the ship's music system and selected the loudest, most defiant song in the human database. The sound of electric guitars and pounding drums filled the Liberty, drowning out the screaming from the walls. "That's better," Jake said. "Now let's go kill this thing." The Liberty broke through the final barrier and entered a vast chamber at the heart of the construct. In the center was the crystal entity that had been controlling the swarm for centuries. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time, like a jewel made of pure malevolence. But Jake could see that it wasn't alone. Around the crystal were the remains of other species, their technology and biology absorbed into the construct. This thing had been destroying civilizations for thousands of years, learning from each victory. "Captain, I'm reading massive energy buildup," Ben warned. "It's preparing some kind of attack." The crystal began to glow brighter, and Jake felt a new wave of terror wash over him. But this time, the fear came with images. He saw Earth burning. He saw his friends and family dying. He saw humanity enslaved and absorbed into the swarm. "It's showing us what it plans to do to our species," Colonel Mitchell said through gritted teeth. Jake looked at the images of Earth's destruction and felt something that surprised him. He wasn't more afraid. He was more angry. "You know what?" he said to the crystal entity. "I've seen worse things than you in human movies. At least our monsters have better special effects." He turned to his crew. "All hands, prepare for ramming speed. We're going to fly this ship right into that ugly crystal and blow it up from the inside." "Captain, the ship's weapon systems are offline," Lisa reported. "We can't damage it with conventional firepower. Then we'll use unconventional firepower." "Lisa, how much antimatter do we have in the engine core?" Lisa's eyes went wide. "About 50 kilograms. But if we destabilize the containment, the explosion will destroy everything within 100 kilometers. "Perfect. Set it up." Colonel Mitchell grabbed Jake's arm. "Captain, that's a suicide mission. We'll all die." Jake looked around the bridge. At his crew. These were good people who had families and dreams and futures ahead of them. But if they failed here, none of that would matter. "Colonel, sometimes the only way to win is to be willing to lose everything. The Federation fought this war for 3 centuries, trying to minimize losses. But you can't beat an enemy like this by playing it safe." He activated the ship's communication system one last time. "All hands, this is Captain Murphy. We're about to do something that's either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. But we're going to save the galaxy, and that's worth any price we have to pay." The Liberty accelerated toward the crystal entity at full speed. The alien intelligence began, broadcasting pure terror, showing the crew images of their worst fears and deepest regrets. Some of the crew members collapsed. Others began screaming, but Jake Murphy kept his hands steady on the controls and his mind focused on one simple thought. This thing had killed too many innocent people to be allowed to survive. The ship struck the crystal entity at maximum velocity. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Lisa Carter activated the antimatter containment failure, and the Liberty's engine core exploded with the force of a small star. The crystal entity died screaming. The sound echoed through the construct and out into space, where every swarm ship suddenly stopped moving. Without the controlling intelligence, they became confused animals floating aimlessly through the void. Admiral Kethzara, watching from the Bridge of Beacon's Hope, saw the construct collapse in on itself and disappear into the dying star it had been built around. The Liberty was gone. Captain Jake Murphy and his crew were gone. But the swarm was finally, truly defeated. 5 years later, the galaxy was rebuilding. The Federation still existed, but it was different now. Human military advisors worked with every species' defense forces. The rigid rules that had governed galactic civilization for millennia had been replaced by the flexible, adaptive approach that humans preferred. Admiral Diana Roberts, Jake Murphy's successor, commanded the new integrated fleet from the human dreadnought Indomitable. She kept a picture of the Liberty's crew on her desk as a reminder of what victory had cost. The galaxy had learned that sometimes you have to be willing to embrace chaos to defeat order. Sometimes you have to risk everything to save anything. And sometimes the most primitive solution is exactly what an advanced problem needs. Humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through superior technology or ancient wisdom, but through sheer stubborn refusal to give up when everything seemed hopeless. The war was over. The galaxy was safe. And in the deepest archives of human space command, new plans were already being made for whatever threat might emerge next, because humans had learned one truth that would serve them well among the stars. When faced with extinction, the willingness to fight like you've lost your mind is often the only path to victory.